Welcome to the Resolute Warrior Podcast by Resolute Men Ministries, where we equip men to activate a life of authentic character. A resolute warrior is purposefully minded, steadfast in character, a man who walks in humility with an unshakable faith. We interview men who are having an impact in the Christian arena, as well as discussing topics related to men from a biblical perspective. It's about real life with real challenges with real men. And now to today's podcast.
I'm Rob Dillingham, host of the Resolute Warrior Podcast. It's my privilege to have on today's episode Paul Bean. Paul is a very proud veteran who served in the United States Marine Corps from 2000 to 2004. His family includes 3 sons, 2 stepdaughters, and his wife. Most of Paul's career has been in management and human relations. Paul founded ManCamp in 2015 and would later formed the True North organization in 2016. He graduated from Concordia University, where he obtained his BA in Communications, Religious Education, and Psychology. Paul has since obtained credentials in life coaching, credits in instructions courses for men, hosts the True North Man podcast, speaks on vision, identity, purpose, and life change. He is also an ordained minister. Paul's childhood and life choices had led him down a path where he now feels it is his duty to call men to a higher standard and live with purpose and intentionality. Lives of service to others rather than service to self. Paul, welcome to the Resolute Warrior Podcast, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rob. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I'm going to dive into that a little later. I like how you, as I read into that bio, man, is lives of service to others rather than to service of self. That is so key, man. We're going to dive into a little bit of that and what that means to you and how it relates to True Man North Ministries. But hey, man, we'd like to start off with, kind of get to know you a little bit, have a little fun. We call this our triple play round.
Okay.
And we're just going to have a little fun with this. You ready?
Ready. Yeah.
So which band or musician is your favorite of all time?
Let's see. I would have to say, all right, let's go with band. The Avett Brothers is probably one of my favorite of all time. Musician, I love listening to some Chris Stapleton as well. So Avett Brothers catches that folksy country / rock vibe that I just really appreciate. And then I would say that Chris Stapleton is kind of the same, just a different style of it. And I just really like the depth of the music they produce and the words that they put to the music.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's really cool. I have to admit, as much as I follow music, I haven't heard of those guys, and that's just probably because I'm getting old. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're pretty popular. You should have heard of them by now.
Well, I'm going to have to dive in and maybe get out of my bubble a little bit and get out of my 80s world of music, right? So what's one of the favorite places you ever traveled in your life so far?
I was thinking about this question a little earlier, and it's really tough for me to say. I will say that I have pretty fond memories from when I was in the Marine Corps of the East Coast. So I was stationed at Cherry Point, North Carolina, and lived on base for, I think, the first year. But then after that, moved out to town and they have a town that's Havelock. It's called Havelock. And then there's another little town about 10 miles down the road. It's called Newport. Mm-hmm. And so you have Newport that's in between Cherry Point, which is the base, and then the beach. And so what I really appreciated about that particular area was the perfect mix of the beach, one direction, and then my hometown the other direction, right? In other words, It was like small town, country feel, kind of removed. It's not too busy. There wasn't too much traffic. But then just the opposite direction was the beach. And although I don't care for the beach that much, it is nice to be able to enjoy it when you'd like to. So you kind of had the best of both worlds there. You go to the beach whenever you want to, or you could go out to the country, go cruising, whatever. You could feel removed. You didn't have to feel like you're in the city and always trying to, keep up with the hustle.
No, I totally can relate to that. And just a quick side note, my son-in-law, he's a veteran of the Marine Corps too. So he was down Cherry Point for a little bit, but he was at Camp Lejeune for a while. And that kind of got us hooked because I know exactly what you're talking about, because there's a beach called Topsail Beach down in North Carolina down there that we love going to. But yes, once you get out of town off 17, you start seeing all this, the big trees and everything. It's like country feel. So I totally relate to that, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. So what's your favorite guy movie of all time?
The guy movie, you know, if I had to pick a movie, I would say, and I'm not a big movie person, although the last 6 years that I've been remarried to my wife, I've gotten into the movie scene more because she really enjoys movies and she can pick them apart like crazy. It's very interesting. And so I'm into them a little bit more now, but if I were to pick one of all time, I would say right now, Gladiator, because I believe it's the embodiment of what most men would want to be like. They want to be honorable men that serve their values and their belief system.
Yeah.
Although I guess it could be argued, with that particular movie, there was necessary, they didn't necessarily hit on the point of forgiveness, right?
Yeah.
But most men, us as humans, it is our nature to want to live an honorable life. It's our nature to want to defend our family and our family's honor. And it's in our nature, I believe personally, most men would much rather be the good guy and the hero than the villain. And there are villains out there, but I believe at their core, they truly want to be a good guy and they want to be a hero. They've just gone about it all the wrong way. And so I just believe that the Gladiator is an embodiment of what an honorable man, as far as a warrior archetype, would look like. And I just really appreciate that. Now, as far as a series, like a movie series, it's a rough one, for some people, but Sons of Anarchy, when I watched that, I was just like, holy cow. Like, it was, first of all, what brought my attention to the whole Sons of Anarchy. I'd put it off for years. I heard people talking about it. People loved it. And like I said, I just wasn't a movie person, a TV person.
Yeah.
But finally I was in a class. I forget which class. Well, I think it was literature, like a literature class in college. And one of our assignments was we had to go to a play. So the only play I could find was a Hamlet play on one of the other college campuses. So I went to that play and had to write a paper on it. And then I think it was probably a few months later, I was at a movie. We had a guys' night out, and we would always go to Alamo Draft House and drink a beer, watch a movie together, hang out and chit chat. And so after the movie, the guys were talking about Sons of Anarchy, and I was like, yeah, no, I never got into that really. And they said, oh man, you got to watch it. It's kind of, in the beginning, it's kind of a spin on Hamlet. And I was like, what? A spin on Hamlet? You got to be a motorcycle gangster movie or whatever, motorcycle gangster club. I was like, how could that be a spin on Hamlet? And sure enough, so I was like, all right, I got to check this out, just because, I went to the play, I had to write a paper on it. And I was like, man, I've got to see what this is all about. So I did. I started watching it and I was hooked. It's like every single episode leaves you at the end just like wanting to watch the next one,
Oh yeah.
And so anyway, what really appealed to me at that time, I was in what's called the DCE program at Concordia University, Director of Christian Education. And so I was doing a lot of biblical studies. I was going through a discipleship program. And, I was learning how to be a better man of God. I was studying scripture. I was learning theology, so on and so forth, history. And what just really stood out to me in Sons of Anarchy is just this, this constant play, this inner battle that was going on in the main characters, like this good versus evil. Like, I want to change. I need to change. I know I need to. I know life can be better on the other side, but then there's just something still like fighting within that continues to pull him back to that other side, and I just found that was such a great representation of life in general, number one, but then even my life, like for years, I knew the right thing. I knew if I were to do this, X, well, then Z could be the outcome, but
Right.
something kept me going back, right,
Mm.
to what I knew best, to what was familiar and what seemed easier, to me at the moment, or what I felt on the other shoulder telling me was right.
Sure.
So anyway, it was just a great
Yeah.
representation of how life can be for men, and the internal struggles that we go through. It's not that we're bad human beings, because the guy in Sons of Anarchy, Jax, I believe was his name, if I remember correctly, like he was a good guy. He truly wanted to be a good man. He wanted to, do right by his family and all that. But then there was just this other stuff. The world just kept pulling him back in and pulling him back in. It's one of those things, you don't know what you know. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And then when you do know, it still doesn't make it any easier to change or to live by, or to create new habits and a new way of life. And I just found that really appealing.
Yeah, I tell you, I think, what I hear is, and this is the thing, is men, are called to live for something bigger than themselves, right? So that is the main goal. I think, a lot of times men have the right intention in mind and what they want to achieve, but sometimes they take the wrong path to getting there. And that's what we're going to learn about your ministry, and also, in men's ministry in general, is to drive men, to lead men to understand the goal that God has created them for. And so we're going to dive into that and get to know a lot about you. And first, I thought it'd be interesting to just let everybody hear a little bit about your testimony and how you were led first to your relationship in Christ.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it was a long journey for me, actually. I mean, let's see, I got baptized when I was 9 years old. Mm-hmm. And so I knew about God, I knew about Jesus, I knew all the songs, I knew all the Bible stories. But it wasn't until I was probably 15 that I really started praying. And the reason why I started praying at that point was just because life was pretty tough. It was pretty rough, just my family life and everything. So I was like, man, I need to find some peace. I need to find a steady hand, right? And the more I went to church, that was the one good thing I had going, was occasionally we would go to church. And there for a while, around that age, we were going fairly consistently. And so I was able to meet people that were praying. I was able to listen to the messages. I was able to have people pray over me and with me. And I just really appreciated the people that I was going to church with, super, super nice people, super loving, super kind. So anyway, it was about 15 years old is when I feel like I really started like talking to God. But, as a teenager, when you don't have anyone to guide you, that it really doesn't stick around. For me, it didn't stick around that long. It was a season for me.
Sure.
And so that season was not very long lived. And I went on into, I'm not going to say I wasn't a believer, because I did believe. I just wasn't practicing. I wasn't a practicing Christian. I didn't even know what it meant to be a practicing Christian. Right. So I would say that over the next several years, it was just, it was one of those things where I just lived life and I didn't pay attention to it. Finally, I got out of the Marine Corps in 2004, and probably 2005 was when I started going back to church. Now that's the thing. Like I realized at that point, I was like, man, there's something off, and I feel like some things need to change. But I had not identified exactly what that was. But my answer was, well, I need to get in church, and I need to trust in God to fix it. And so started back to church in 2005, I believe 2006, somewhere around there, or in between there, one of the two. And shortly after that, started leading the youth ministry. Mm-hmm. So just because we were in a small church, I mean, congregation, probably 50 or 60 people at most. And you know, that was literally what the congregation was. And then, you know, probably 30 people on regular attendance. And so the youth was super small. You know, I think at any given time, most we had was 15 at a time. And so anyway, I believe that God really started working on me, working with that youth. And it was actually at a youth retreat that we took them to. So when I was a kid, I went to this youth camp called Country Camp Discovery. It was Discovery Camp. And I always remembered that camp. It was so awesome because they had like tug of war tournaments, volleyball tournaments. They had huge water slides. They had go-karts, horseback riding, you know, whatever you want as a youth, right? I mean, it's just fun stuff. And so I was like, man, like I started thinking about it. I was like, well, leading this youth, we need to start doing some fundraisers. I need to take these kids to this youth experience because I just remember it being so powerful for me as a kid the 2 times that I went. And I believe that God really started working on me. Like I took the youth so they could get an experience, but I believe God started working on me in that moment. But there again, it was just it was very, very short lived. Just still like I feel like the pastor had his hands full, right? And that's all there was the pastor. This was one of those churches that you go to church and there's a pastor, but there's no other ministries. There's no adult ministries. There's no Bible study ministry. There's none of that. So there's no one to disciple. There's no one to mentor. And so I just didn't have that. And so I was still kind of trying to figure it out. And I believe that my flesh got in the way and I started running after that. I believe that I felt good for a moment. God started working on me. It got a little uncomfortable. My flesh got to me and then I felt guilty and I started running from that point, which is where things started to spiral out of control. For me, probably about 2008, 2009 is when it really started. Just life was it just got very tumultuous. And I would say 2013 is when God finally started reining me back in. And then I like to tell people too that when I finally surrendered, when I finally submitted my life and said, no more of this stuff over here, only the stuff that God wants for me going forward, that's when life really got tough.
Oh, absolutely.
That's when life got tough. You would expect the exact opposite. So I like to always tell men that I work with, I'm like, life is not easy on the other side. You know, and there's a reason why we have a warrior spirit. And it's because life is not easy as a Christian man. And it requires a warrior spirit. And, you know, obviously the Holy Spirit and God leading us to help us in these times that we just feel like throwing our hands up and going back to the old ways of life that serve ourselves. And so I feel like that was a long answer, but that's kind of where it is for me. I believe that God started on me probably truly at age 15.
Yeah.
And probably, I believe that's when I was ultimately, I know without a doubt at that point, I was saved.
Yeah.
Right. But then from there, like my journey was just back and forth, you know, and me just being a knucklehead.
Yeah, well, we all go down that road, brother, and sometimes we revisit it, you know. You know, we're called to work out our salvation, and that's what I'm hearing. And you know, what you're sharing here is you're working it out. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And you know, and that doesn't mean we're going to be perfect, but we serve the perfect one. We're going to fall back, but do we get up? And that's the warrior. The warrior gets back up and gets in the battle and keeps pressing on, and that's what God's called us to do. Yeah. This Christian life, this discipleship life is not meant to be easy, but what it does bring you is peace through those challenges. And of course, God's going to bless us through it, and we're going to see his hand in it all. And I'm sure we could be here for hours talking about stories about that. And so now, man, that's good. Now, I love hearing that, man, because I'm kind of like you, as you know, I got involved with youth ministry and helped out, and God kind of had my hand on me at that point and was kind of moving me forward. So, But I'm gonna get into your life in the Marine Corps a little bit, because I really want to find out. I believe there's a reason that men commit to things in their life. There's something they want to achieve through that. So I'd love to hear your story about what was that appealing moment in your life where you said, "Man, I'm going to join the Marine Corps because this is what I expect I'm going to get from this." And how did you sense that calling at that time?
Sure. Yeah. It was my senior year. Actually, I think it was my junior year. No, it wasn't my senior year. I'm sorry. My junior year, the recruiter reached out to me and we had a few conversations. And at that point, I had fully intended, on going to college. Now, I couldn't afford college. So my only option was a scholarship. And I was putting all my eggs in one basket. And I said, all right, I'm just going to work hard and I'm going to get a football scholarship. And I truly believed in that. And I thought that I could do that. Well, my senior year, we weren't even in district play yet. We hadn't even started our district games. And I ended up breaking my ankle during practice. And at that point, my fallback plan was to go into the Marine Corps. And the reason why I chose the Marine Corps was simply, I think it was just because there again, I think it's just that part of us as men that we want to prove to ourselves and to other people that we have what it takes. And I liked the idea of being a hero. I liked the idea of being honored because of something that I did that was noble and honorable. And, I fully intended on going into special forces, of course. And shortly after that, I met my first wife. And so we got married, had children, and I ended up not doing any special forces. Matter of fact, I didn't even stay in, but that was my plan, right? My plan was to do special forces. My plan was to stay in and retire. And so now when I mentor a young man, I'm like, look, like it sounds good, right? It's like you're gung ho and you're motivated right now, but let's think through this. Like you're going to spend your first 4 years in the Marine Corps, and that's where you're really going to be able to tell if you're ready to make that kind of a commitment or not. Because my first couple of years was rough. And just simply because of me, right? Get in there, you get in trouble, you're acting like a knucklehead. I ended up getting busted down in rank. And so I had a really sour attitude the first couple of years. But luckily, once I got to the fleet, I had a staff sergeant who kind of took me under his wing and really poured into me. And by the time I got out, I was, sergeant. And so I'd already gotten picked up rank and made some good friends, and I was feeling good, and I was going to re-enlist, but things just didn't work out. And so anyway, I think the whole idea of me joining the Marine Corps at age 19, when I was a senior, it was my fallback plan. But it was a fallback plan that I knew 100% I was in. I was like, all right, if I can't do football, right? Because let's be real. Probably every young man who plays football in high school, one of their dreams is that they could get a scholarship to play college football.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
And so, I had the choice. Am I going to play college football or am I going to go into the Marine Corps? And so I was like, well, I'd rather play college ball. I love playing ball. I didn't know what the Marine Corps was all about. I just knew it was an idea. I knew it sounded good, but I knew football was a passion of mine. And so when that was taken off the table, I said, well, it's time to shift gears. Marine Corps, sounds pretty good. Marines are supposed to be the tough guys. They're supposed to be the best of the best. And that's what appealed to me. I wanted to be, if I was going to join a military branch, I wanted to be the best of the best. I wanted to be the toughest. And that wasn't necessarily for anyone else. I think at that point, I was trying to prove myself to me.
Sure.
I was trying to prove to myself that I had what it took.
You can connect with Resolute Men on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Men, stay focused and determined. Fight the good fight. live for something bigger than yourself, and be a resolute warrior.